All right, want to say welcome to the brilliant author, public speaker, and teacher BF Nkrumah. Fire, what's going on?
Oh man, I'm feeling good. Thankful that you guys brought me out. Glad to be here.
Serious thing, glad you're here. Looking forward to the reason, right? First thing I want to discuss is you have a book called The Power of Choice, right?
Yes.
You talk about how the choices men make shape their lives. A question I have for you is, do you think most brothers really understand the connection between their actions and the experiences they have?
Between so basically what they do and then how that produces their life.
Do you
I
think they
don't
understand that connection?
No, I don't think most humans period understand that. Particularly when you're in survival mode, you're just trying to survive. So trying to think about how this one action is causing a domino effect is of no consequence if you're just trying to figure out how you're going to pay your rent, how you're going to feed yourself, how you're going to feed your children. And so most people aren't thinking 2 or 3 days ahead. They're only thinking about how to survive the day. And until we start to sit back and to bring ourselves out of that survival mode by recognizing if I change my actions, I change my life. Like Marcus Garvey said, if we change our mindsets today, we change our condition tomorrow. But I don't believe most people at all are paying attention to the fact that their actions are creating their life.
And facts. And I think that the average man, unfortunately, specifically a black man, one, he doesn't get the quiet time. And if he gets it, he's scared to embrace that quiet time. And because of that, now he can't really reflect and see that connection.
Yeah. And being a black man, to be specific, is so much that's on us and so much that we have to deal with where thinking if I get pulled over, the cops are going to kill me, or just any kind of threat of violence, or the ideas, the identities that are placed on us, the roles that are placed on us. In my new book, I'm talking about that before we're even born. Just the fact that you're a black male, there's expectations that are put on you that have nothing to do with you or your identity, your spirit, your soul, nothing. So there's so many stresses, that are on us from birth. And then we're not allowed to be emotional. We're not allowed to be vulnerable. We're not allowed to cry. We're not allowed to feel. The only emotions that we're allowed to feel is anger and
Rage.
fighting. Yeah, and then they wonder why that's what's shown. If a little boy likes a little girl, is he gets teased, so he hits her. Not to condone it, but that's just the consequences. I was talking to one of my best friends a couple weeks ago, and I've just been doing all of my promotional stuff for my book, and now I'm so conscious of everything, and I'm really big on identity, and so I'm working on my own, and peeling back the layers of things that aren't me. And I was like, people always say I have a aggressive voice. And I'm like, I don't even know if that's my real voice or that I have to develop. Because I grew up in South Philly. Where I grew up at, oh my God, our middle school was like East Side High. Like people was getting hung out the windows. Like it was crazy. So I'm like, I don't even know if my voice is my actual voice or that I have to develop a voice that threaten people, you know? And so that's that identity piece. Like we've not been allowed to just explore and to be. We can't even like the things that we like in our neighborhoods. If a young black boy likes computer science, we teasing him. We call him a nerd. We're not even allowed to have different ideas or views or hobbies. Or you doing some white stuff? It's like, nah, this is for any and everybody. But we've created a box, which I call the man box. It's things that are inside this man box that you can't feel, do, believe, because you got to stay here, in particular in the hood. That's why, either you got to, what Biggie say, either you selling crack rock, or you got a wicked jump shot. It's like, or you a rapper. It's like, it's only a couple of things that are accepted when the world is so big.
We really typecast ourselves to the highest level,
Yes.
and internalize how others have typecasted
Yes.
us.
And that's why environment is so important, and shifting your environment and getting somewhere else. Think about this. On Krypton, Superman is Kal-El, right? There's nothing super about him on Krypton. But once he changes his environment, and comes to Earth, all of a sudden he's stronger, he's faster, he sees further, he becomes a superhuman on Earth. But the only thing he changed was his environment. Now, the truth is he was always super. It's just that the elements that were in his first environment suppressed the super that was in him. And once he shifted that environment, he became something nobody ever seen before. And so that's so valuable for us to get our young, well, older black men too, but I think we have a responsibility of moving our young black men, getting them into different environments so we can bring out the superpowers that's in them, because they're so creative, they're so gifted, they're so powerful, but their environments is shrinking everything about them, and they never get a chance to fully express who they are, or they never even get a chance to identify who they truly are.
You know what you're saying is facts. You know the saving grace for me is basketball. I played basketball, right? But I was able to play like, at a decent level where I was able to travel and be around different people. And the most bugged out thing I experienced? I remember I had like a little temper tantrum, right? And I saw everybody's reaction looking at me like I was crazy compared to my environment. You kind of boost it up. It's a vibe. And it clicked like, everybody don't respond the same way. You know what I'm saying? Everybody don't respond the same way to certain behaviors, and I would never experience that if I was only in my environment.
Because your environment would have
Boosted you up,
and confirmed that, like, oh yeah, go ahead, go ahead, punch on him. I'm just seeing people at the basketball games punch on the referees over a bad call or a call they thought was bad. So yeah, that environment is key, man. Once you start to change that environment and expand and start seeing different things, because once the mind is expanded, it don't go back. So the more you get to see, and then your brain gets curious. So once you got one little thing that stretches your brain starts thinking about something else, and because your brain, your brain is a tool of your soul and your spirit. It's not who you are. So the brain is an operating system that is actually doing things that you can control in order to better your life. So your brain starts doing things on its own and starts stretching. Once you stretch it, it starts to stretch more and more and more, and begins to create urges in you to make you want to do more and more and more so you can become more. I remember years ago, I didn't read nothing. I didn't read anything. I wasn't picking up no book. What I'm reading for. Now I'm a 9-time author. Just a little spark, and boom, you go. But I also changed my environment.
So you said you were outside and you got inside the church, and it helped you, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of criticism about the black church, but there's still good that can come from it. What do you think the church can better do, right, to assist black men who are trying to transition and improve their life, their lifestyle, and their habits?
What do I think the church can do better for that specifically? I think one of the gripes that I've had with the church for some times is that it's not community oriented enough.
Before you continue, please explain that part.
Well, there's an idea of going to church or having church, and that's how the church operates. Like, you can go to or have. The Greek word for church is a gathering of people, a group of people. So it's not about where you go; it's about who's all together. And when you look at the New Testament, when a church is founded in the book of the Acts, and you see how they're operating as full communities. They're not. In fact, there weren't no buildings. So since there were no buildings, it was just people in communities who were building together. So I think the church can be more community oriented altogether. But essentially, I think a lot of it still starts at home, because what the church has done for me, it can do for any other black man, but the black man is not choosing to go.
Do you think it's a specific church you went to that had that effect, or you think all churches have that capability?
Well, I would never say it's all of anything, but I think that if you once you go in there, it's different. So once you're experiencing different, like you said, you was ready to had a temper tantrum on the basketball court, and you saw that nobody else is responding that way. So when you go into the church, for the most part, at
You gotta
least
tone it down.
automatically you get in there and it's like, all right, people are trying to talk to you, hug on. But if you and I had a love-hate relationship with this right here. When you come into the church from the street, you treat it like God. Like when a street dude come in there and give his life to Christ, like everybody is like, oh yeah, But I think any church will have a positive effect on you just because it's not reinforcing any of the person that you were. So I couldn't be that same individual inside the church as I was on the corner. So I had to become a totally different person. So I believe any church should be able to do that unless you're in a church that's wildly out of control. But so for the most part, I think if the men choose, to go there, I think the men that's in the church got to do a better job of, bringing young guys in the church. My first community organization I built because I wanted to be the man I needed. My father passed when I was 10 and nobody stepped up. And I said this before, my uncle got mad at me, but it's just, it's just the truth. Like, nobody stepped up. And like Tupac said, I ran around with the thugs, and even though they sold drugs, showed a brother love. And that's where I found my community. That's where I found love, what I thought was love at least. That's where I found a structure. That's where I found financial stability. And because no man showed up for me, once I got out, the first thing I did was create a program to go back and show young guys that, you can do something different. You can be something different. In particular, when I wrote my first book, it was a lot, in the neighborhood. Like, he wrote a book, and when I was in the streets, I was a pretty prominent figure, so my life change sparked a lot, which is how I became who I am today. Because once I changed, it was a lot of chatter like, him? Like, it's not the guy that was. And so, unbeknownst to me, it was so many other people who do want change. They just didn't know where to get it from. And so I would be outside and they would just walk up on me. Yo, let me holler at you. It's like, yo, man, I just come home, man. I was in the jail. Last time I seen you, you was X, Y, and Z. And they in the jail telling me that you doing this now. And I'm like, yeah, man, I'm done with all that, man. And he's like, how you do it? And I'm like, so I just start helping people the best way I could.
How did you do it? Because I know it's a push and a pull when you're trying to transition your life, and there are many layers too. People don't acknowledge. You have the social capital that you gain, praise from peers. You have the economic aspect. On the other side, now you have the fear of this unknown, and more fear in regards to, can I achieve something other than what I was doing? So how did you navigate all that?
So I had a very supernatural experience. I don't know if you want me to go into it or not. I will. So now, people who watch this you can believe it or you cannot believe it. But the one thing that you can fact check is that one day I was super, super heavy street dude. And then a day later, I start doing something different. So you can figure out how I got there, but I'll tell the story. 2006, my cousin graduates from college. She's having a cookout. Her father is a pastor. So it's a lot of, and I went to the church when I was young for a couple years, so I knew a lot of, the people that was from the church that came to the cookout. So I come to the cookout. I'm just ignorant, man. I got on a Gucci outfit. I'm out there playing basketball in Gucci shoes, and I was just so boisterous, man. I had this new convertible, this Jaguar, baby blue, 22-inch rims, white seats, and one of the deacons that I knew from when I was young, he walked up to me, he looked at me, he looked at the car, he looked at me, he looked at the car, and I'm just waiting for the praise because this is and he said, God has truly blessed you. And it messed my whole day up. Instantly deflated my ego. This is how wild I was. I was so upset. I left the cookout. I'm irate. How dare you give anything credit for what I got than me? And so I'm leaving. I'm driving, and now, so wild I was, man. Now I'm cussing God out. You bless who? You did what? This is some crazy movie stuff. I'm in the car like, man, where was you at when I was in the jail? Where was you at when I was this? Where was you at when I was? And I got the 18th and Washington Avenue. And again, however y'all feel, I got the 18th and Washington Avenue, and I just got snatched out of my car, snatched into the sky. And it was like the movie Scrooge. You know, you show them like somebody was taking you around to the ghosts of the past and this and that. And I was taken to every instant that I got shot at.
What times you been shot, bro?
I've been shot twice, but I've been shot at. I don't know how many
shot
times.
at. I got shot.
Yeah, how many times I was shot at. And I had just got shot at two nights before that, or the night before that. And so that's the last one I got to. And that night I had to go to the bathroom. My brother got a barbershop like across this street on the other side of where we hang at. And so I'm gonna walk down here and go to the bathroom. But as I took a couple of steps, something said, yo, cross the street to see if the light is on. So you don't walk all the way down there for nothing. So I crossed the street. Once I got to the other side of the street, two guys turned the corner and started shooting at me. Had I not crossed the street, I would have walked head on to it. And when I went back, took me back to that vision, and God said, you asked me where I was, I told you to cross the street. But he said, but I'm done. So I had my hand on you all of this time. But now, whatever the devil wants to do, I'm going to let him do. And that was Friday night. And Sunday, I got up and went to church. And I got the grace back on me. And now the devil can't touch me again. But that's my story, man. And once I just dedicated myself to that, man. Like to think it was just such an experience, like knowing who I was and all the terrible things, that happened directly from me or because I was on top of other people, can tell them to do things. And to know that whole time God was still like, nah, shielding me because like, nah, I got purpose for you. To think that God just didn't just discard me all those years. And, so that love, man, it's like he loved me that much. So I just thought that I had to honor it. I mean, the biggest being in creation loved me enough to keep me when other people didn't get kept, And so that's what drove me, was the love of God. Like, I ain't going back. And I've been going forward ever since and grabbing everybody that I can.
I've noticed examples of black people going against their own interests, right? Mm-hmm. Why do you think that happens, and what mindset or actions would be more beneficial?
Well, first of all, I think it's ignorance for the most part. I don't know if most black people know actually what's good for black people. I had the pleasure of being a part of the UNIA, which is the organization that Marcus Garvey started. So we had political education classes every Tuesday. So I was afforded, sitting under BF Nkrumah, one of my mentors, to be able to learn every week, to understand what politics are, and and then reading so many books, So I don't think most black people understand what's best for them, and then most things are just habitual. Like, we live our lives on autopilot. Like 90% of your day, if you're not intentional, is just you just running a loop. And so what was done before is just what people are doing now. And a lot of what we've done in the past, because of, racism and Jim Crow and all these different things, we're just still behaving in a way and most importantly, viewing ourselves a certain way. Because when you don't have a high racial esteem, like to love your blackness and black people, of course you're going to do things that are not beneficial to you. You got to think about it. A black person, and I'm not even talking about just proximity. I'm just talking about period. A black person going to let the white person walk down the street and be more nice to them than they are going to be another black person. And that's just because of that low racial esteem. So we've been beat down all through slavery. I mean, like what shadow slavery was crazy. And you got to think we are only 5-6 generations away. Like we're not far. Like our great was enslaved. So we're still trying to thread that. This is a great book I read by Dr. Joy DeGruy called Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome. And I when I always had my programs, that's one of the first books I had everybody read. You got to read this, because the one thing that book made me do was question everything about myself, and that's what I loved about it. It made me think. Well, why is your favorite color blue? Is there something lingering from whatever? And that really is what put me on my whole path to understanding identity and rebuilding identity. So I think black people are still dealing with that. And what can we do to be better is just, I would just say, put ourselves first in everything. We don't do that. We put everybody before us. We're gonna put the immigrant rights before us. We're gonna put the LGBT rights before us. We're gonna put feminism before us. We're gonna put everything that seems inclusive before us. But anything that's inclusive is always exclusive to us. So yeah, we're gonna fight for it because they say it's gonna help us, but then it's only gonna help them. So I think we got to put ourselves first in every way.
On an individual level, right? What do you think? What advice would you give to a brother or a sister that really has that self hate for themselves? Like, what's the first step you think they should start in regards to healing that process and starting to grow and really love themselves?
Well, the first thing that I would tell them to do is go pick up my book, The Great Hijack, The Stilling of the Black Talented Tenth Through a System of Self-Hate. So that book is going to help you, walk through that. But, you know, for years out, it took me a couple of years to write that book for the, all the research. And because I was really trying to figure out why do, so many of us have so much, self-hate. But self-hate is such a subconscious thing. It's not like people are actually looking in the mirror as like, I hate niggas. It's not that. It's just subtle ways that we're looking at ourselves, and subtle ways that we're looking at each other, and subtle ways that we're looking at our possibilities, our opportunities, because we can be in our like in these hoods, these negative, I don't want to call it negative neighborhoods, but these impoverished neighborhoods that don't have a lot of resources, don't have a lot of good things for us, and that will begin to just limit your view. So the self-hate that develops, it doesn't really look like or feel like self-hate. It's just that, well, my environment told me this is all I can do. So we have to, well, for one, so in my book, what I was talking about was the talented 10th, because I do believe in that concept. The talented 10th needs to reach back, but it's too often we want to leave. Like when I was young, I had a teacher, Miss Moser. I had her in third grade and fourth grade. She probably had the biggest impact on me out of any teacher, and probably a lot of people just in my life, period, just in those couple of years. Strong pro-black sister, and strong sister, period, man. She used to beat us with rulers. She ain't play no games. But, she just instilled something in me. And I remember being like 8, 9 years old and hearing people talking about making it out the hood. And I didn't understand that. I'm like, why do people want to leave? Why don't anybody want to stay and make it better? And as a kid, this is how I was. Like, I'm like, first of all, I don't know all of the intricacies of the neighborhood. I'm like, man, I'm on this block with 50 friends. Like, I was on the block we grew up on with so many kids. I'm like, man, we got a crate ball out here. We out here playing curve ball and king ball. What could be better than this? But I never understood the concept of leaving the hood instead of making the hood better. And so that's what I've been on my path to doing, staying and making things better. So I think that's what needs to happen. We all have to reach back. Everybody have to reach back, whether you're talented 10th or not, whether you're rich or not. Everybody needs to reach back. When I look at my life, no black man showed me what they did. Like, I could have been totally different if a black mechanic was like, hey, let me show you how to fix cars. Or a black construction worker, let me show you how to hang a door. You know, I could have had a option of making money some kind of viable way if somebody would have showed me. But no, I didn't have those skills, so I did because the only people, and this is the sad part about it, the only people who pour into young black men are street dudes. Now, and this
Unless
is
you got extreme talent.
yeah. But then even then, a lot of street dudes still be funding that kind of stuff. You got to think a street dude funded Will Smith. So the street guys are the ones who are pouring into like that's who taught me how to be a man. You know, at least from the version that they had. They taught me how to make money. They taught me how to have principles, and nobody else did. And I don't fault them for what they did, the negative parts, because I give them grace to say, well, I got to give myself grace because I took those same tools and tried in my mind. This is the thing. When people look at it, people put maliciousness on what they want to put it on. But in my mind, when I see this young boy with holes in his sneakers,
You putting them on.
I'm giving you an opportunity to have a better life. I'm not thinking in my mind, I'm trying to destroy this little 14-year-old boy, 13-year-old boy. I'm not thinking about it because I don't feel like I'm destroyed. I feel like I'm doing well, you know? And so it just, again, like I said earlier, these things just become habits. So it's a negative thing. It's not right. It's not good. It's not really beneficial, but it's what I had. It's what I had. It's like, how can you blame a child for biting another child if that child was raised by lions?
You brought up a great point. I want to talk about segregation, right?
Okay.
I feel that access to examples, as you just mentioned, is one of the greatest detriments in our community because unfortunately, people who quote unquote do well, they kind of isolate themselves at the end of the day. And if you're not in that circle, you don't have access to that example.
We gotta come. That's why one of the things I love about Kenny Gamble. Kenny Gamble, you know, he's huge, but he came to the realization that I can't not be in my hood. I gotta be back amongst the people. Kenny Gamble, I don't know how much he's worth. He's probably a billionaire, you know. Kenny lived 3 blocks from me. Like, he's in the heart of South Philly, just walking around. He got his community project that's going on. Like, he built a nice sized little house in the middle of the hood, and he's around. It's just that he's so much older than a lot of the young guys. Like, they don't understand this guy's writing for Michael Jackson and stuff like that. You know, so to me, man, it all comes back to just reach back for somebody. Like, a lot of times we're thinking about conquering the whole thing. So I had started this organization once called Black Captains. So my girlfriend at the time, she worked for the Philadelphia More Beautiful Committee, which is the committee in Philly that has block captains. And so I'm just watching how they operate, how they disseminate information and make things happen. I'm like, yo, it'd be dope if we had a system like that. And so I started something where I was trying to get black men to just, yo, can you just be in control of your block? Like, I don't want to talk about, can you change the city? Can you change 1 million kids? No, but can you just make sure your block is good? And got a lot of resistance, man. A lot of brothers. Man, there's one brother I was talking to one day. He like, you did go knock on Miss So and So door. She might be interested in that. I said, brother, this is for all men. This is for all men, you know. But that's if every man just took control of his block, you'll change the city because there's a black man on every block. And not from and this is what I always, you know, talk to them about, because they're like, these young guys don't listen, this and that. Well, do you listen? Do you hear them? You know? And that's why I thank God for some of, you know, I guess who I was in the street, because it afforded me the opportunity to where
That respect.
yeah. So now when I like cause I turned the corner into my pulpit. So the same corner that we ran our organization on, I shut it down, and I turned my corner into my pulpit. Literally, I would be out there just speaking. Like that was like I was going hard, and that's how I was saying. So many people was just people were coming up to me and just wanting to talk to me. So I was able to say, yo, come let me talk to y'all. And they couldn't, well, at least they felt like they couldn't just be like, nah, got that old head. But also, they knew I loved them too. That's the key. So I'm talking to some of these guys like, well, why don't you have a relationship with the young guys that's on your block? Like, what do you just go in the house? Like, you don't talk to your neighbors' sons when you see them out there? That's a problem. So it's not like we got to do all of this big, strenuous stuff. You don't have to be Marcus Garvey. Like, you don't have to be Malcolm X or Martin Luther King. But can you at least talk to the young guys that's on your block? Can you at least tell them where you work? Show them a skill that you have. Show them a hobby. That he might be an old head on your block that's an expert playing the guitar or something. He don't show nobody. So just expose them to something else.
You have a new book out called Killing Yesterday, Creating a New Day for a New You. Many brothers carry deep regret. What advice would you give to a man who feels consumed by past mistakes and can't seem to access his full potential?
So we gotta create a new story about ourselves. So that's one of the central themes of the book Killing Yesterday. Is That's the first part. The Killing Yesterday part is putting to bed that old story and that old version of yourself. So there was a version of you that was built by pain, trauma, expectations, roles. Like, I'm the oldest grandson on my mother's side. That comes, and there's a bunch of us, 40, 50 of us, right? So being the oldest grandson comes with a certain level of responsibility I never agreed to. So you so you have roles and expectations that have been placed on you that have shaped your identity. And then so things happen that sometimes that I would say are somewhat out of your control. Now, not to condone any bad actions, but when I'm dealing with pain and trauma and certain things like that, you're going to respond in different ways. So I would want them to understand that that's not you. That was the version of you that was made by those things. And so because of the things that you did, you created a story about yourself. This is who I am. No, this is what you did. And I've, I've done some egregious things in life. So I'm living proof right now that when people talk about me now, nobody brings up the past. They see what I'm doing now because there's a new story. There's a new narrative about who I am. I put the old one to rest. That's what Killing Yesterday is all about. I'm a listen. I learned this in survival, and I was practicing it the whole time. But now I'm out of survival mode. It's time for me to move into thriving. It's time for me to move into my creativity and building. So I honor that part of me that brought me here, but I got it from now.
How long did it take for you personally before we continue to kind of really move on? Because you're unique. You go through a process where you start learning a lot. So the more you learn, shouldn't you realize, like, man, the level of stuff you did, doesn't it seem more effed up because you understand it more than you did initially?
Yeah, definitely. I've cried. Oh, I cried many and many, many, many nights. I got, I was in, so I was, everything that comes in the streets, and oftentimes you end up going to war with people that you were once friends with. And so one of my childhood friends, when I got older, he ended up on the other side. In the middle of our war, he was murdered. When it happened, I was like, fuck that nigga. 12, 13 years later, I'm sitting on a couch one day and I'm just thinking about going over shoes and diving in a pool. And I was just thinking about this memory, in the pool. And I noticed he was in it. And when I realized he was in it, 13 years later, I just cried for my 12-year-old friend. I cried and cried and cried for my 12-year-old friend. So yeah, the more you do, but the thing is, you have to understand that yesterday is gone. What you did yet, we can't even prove, half of the stuff happened that actually happened because nobody saw it. The only place yesterday lives is in your mind. So if you don't keep replaying it, it has no power, it has no bearing.
You know, it's wild. I was reading a book called Psycho Cybernetics. It was,
Maxwell Maltz.
yeah, it was recommended to me by Anthony Browder. And there's you know, you take your notes, and it's a part there where I say people just need to change the tape, bro. They playing the wrong tape.
Yes. Yeah. And that's it. So you keep telling yourself the same story of who you are. And the more you tell yourself this same story, you continuously be that person. And then your life begins to reinforce that. So what you say becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then it just continues to grow and snowball until you become the epitome of that version of you. And so what we have to do is put that to rest. I'm not going to be that person. You know, I'm working on being a different person. I'm changing something in the loop. So what I talk about in the book, right? So say we got pain, shame, guilt, sadness, depression. This is your loop. You keep going to shame, pain, guilt because of your past. If you just take one piece out of that intentionally and put something else in there, you change the loop. So if before you get depression, you change that sadness with pause. Or I felt this. All right, it did happen. That was messed up. All right, let me just pause. I have a little less depression this time. And then I'm going to go around a loop again, and that pause is going to, lower that depression again. But then I take another one of these pieces out, and I add something else. And I just keep taking pieces out until my loop looks totally different. Once my loop looks different, I look different. Once I look different, my story is different. Once the story I tell myself about myself is different, everything about me is different. Everything about my life is different. So whereas I used to be a drug dealer, maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. Nobody see me selling drugs. There's no video of it, right? That's just in my mind. That's the way I look at it. Like, that's the past. The past, it can't, how can something I can't touch have so much power over me? How can something that's not tangible have so much power over me? And that's what I had to learn because I carried a lot of guilt. I carried so many of my young guys, that died or went to jail and got life. And I know I glorified the image of the street guy so much. Like I've always been, when I say I turn the corner to my pulpit, the corner was always my pulpit. The Bible says
Change your message.
Yeah, the Bible says that the gifts and calling of God are without repentance. So I've been using my gift all this time, I was just using it for wrong. And so I was inspiring people to do the wrong thing. And so all I did was, again, just change that. So for years, it definitely hurt me. And like I said, I cried a lot of nights, over those things that I did when I started looking back on it. And, but I couldn't let that keep me down. It inspired me. I felt like if I brought death, then guess what? I need to bring life. So the only way I can really make, in my mind, if the only way I can make what I did wrong right is by doing right now. And so that's just my motivation to just keep going. I'm going to save as many lives as I can, or be a conduit to them being saved, or a part of them being saved. But I'm going to do everything in my power to help change the lives for the positive way more people than I did negative.
But I saw you in a previous interview, and I remember you mentioning that in certain cities it's illegal to teach preschoolers to read.
Yeah.
Can you explain what cities these are and why this policy exists?
So one of them was Philly. So one of my elders, she owns a pre-K place. And so I would always go around there, sit with her. So one day I go around and they're taking everything off the walls, letters and all this. And I'm like, what y'all about to remodel or something? And she's like, no. She said, we gotta take all everything that has to do with reading off the wall because we're having an inspection. So I said, what do you mean? She's like, oh no, we're not allowed to teach the children this young to read and still get our funding. She said, in the inner city, that it's not like we cannot teach them. Well, we do it anyway, but we're not allowed to. Now the surrounding areas, the suburbs, and the private schools that are in Philly, they're allowed to do it. But the publicly funded ones for the inner cities couldn't do it. It was illegal. So that's just a part of the way they bake racism into everything about us. Every part of our lives. Because if you start reading later, you already at a disadvantage, and so they already are ahead of you.
Are you aware of this is still going on right now?
I do not know. I forget what year it was when I wrote the book I was talking about that in. So I don't know if that is true. But when I had put it on social media, I was talking about it, and the pre-K teachers came out of the woodworks, like, yeah, all of them, like, they're like, we still do it, but yeah, they couldn't get the funding if they got caught teaching these inner city kids to read. That's real. Yes. And people like to say it's no systemic racism. Yeah.
There's a lot of debate about music and its influence on behavior. Can you break down why it's so important to be intentional about the sounds we listen to and how the energy, both physiological and financial, that we put into music can affect us positively and negatively?
Sure. So I'm going to start here. Whenever the song Summertime by Will Smith comes on, I don't care what year it is. In my body, you know what year it is? 1992. Nostalgia. Nostalgia is, and this is crazy because everybody knows about nostalgia, especially when it comes to music, but they don't actually know what's going on in the body. So what's going on in the body is whenever you have some kind of emotional experience, your body takes a screenshot of everything that's in your body, every chemical that's being produced, every feeling that's in and throughout your nervous system. It takes a screenshot. Then every time you experience something similar, your body produces that exact feeling to make you feel exactly how you felt in that moment. Now, it's cool when you just feeling how you felt when you were listening to Summertime. It's not so much cool when you feel how you felt when you were listening to Blowing Somebody's Brain Out. I was speaking at this event one time with a bunch of, I think, 9th and 10th graders. And so we're trying to talk about the music, and they're like, it don't do nothing, this and that. So I asked a question. I said, well, tell me how many of y'all like to hear a phone call about a black man being killed? Nobody. So y'all don't like hearing that a black man got killed? No. Then why do y'all like it to a beat? It was like, so what you listen to, again, becomes a part of who you are. In particular with that beat, when you look at almost all African cultures, when the griot is speaking, it's a drum that's being beat. That frequency is opening your spirit to receive whatever is being given to you. And so that heavy bass that, attracts us so much,
808.
yeah, Dr. Malefi Asante calls it DNA memory. Like there's still some African stuff that just comes out of us because it's still in us. And so that bass, we love it, it's hitting us, but then it's programming you. Whatever you're listening to is making you more susceptible to that. Now, we have some people who say, it doesn't affect you because, like, there might be some people who are, well, I'm not from the hood and I'm still doing good and I listen to that kind of music. Yeah, but your environment is not reinforcing it either. So now if I'm in an environment where this is all that's going on and I'm listening to this music, the music is reinforcing it. I never forget, I was in jail and we was reading all these jail novels and my man Spider was ordering all these super weird, at least to me at the time, weird science fiction joints. And I'm like, yo, man, why are you reading this weird stuff? And you ain't reading the stuff that we read. And he was like, that stuff got me here. He said, he He said, man, I know everything that's in those books. I lived it. He said, man, I want to read some stuff that I can't even imagine, man. And so he was reading science stuff the whole time, just stretching his mind and stretching his imagination. So the music, man, not just the music, but the imagery, the videos, the interviews. I mean, to think that it costs $4.5 million for a 30-second video at this commercial at the Super Bowl, and you think what we see doesn't affect us? Who's going to pay $4.5 million if putting something in front of people doesn't affect them? So we watch the music guys create clothing trends, create hair trends,
That's the thing. Like,
language.
that's the thing where I don't even. That's the thing I don't understand the denial part about. Because I'll ask people like, "Why do you dress that way?" Like, who told you that this is the trend at the moment? You didn't come to this conclusion on your own.
No.
Nah, I do what I do. I wear what I want to wear.
But you're wearing the same thing everybody else got. So how was that your
At this
individual
period.
identity?
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, there's a quote there. It's easy to fool somebody than to convince them they've been fooled. But I think people are in denial about how much they're being controlled, how much they're being led to certain behaviors, and that's one of the reasons they continue certain behaviors.
Well, so the biggest reason is because, see, who they are is their identity. So we think sometimes we're challenging somebody's behavior, but we're challenging their whole identity.
That's where the defensiveness comes.
That's where it comes out. I never forget one day, one of my mentors, Achille Nkrumah, we're down at the UNIA, and they did something that I didn't like, and I had a little temper at the time. Still, I hadn't worked on my kinks out, and so I got mad, and I'm getting rowdy, and he's just calm. He let me get it out, and then he just grabbed both of my hands. And he said, "Young warrior, everything ain't challenging your manhood. Some things is just challenging your mind." And I took that with me ever since. Because when I sat to think about it, that's really what it was. I felt like what y'all did, y'all was disrespecting me. And I guess because of how I was raised, any disrespect, you gotta meet that with force. And so when he said that, everything is not challenging your manhood, it's challenging your mind. And I was able to receive that. But when we're talking about these people that aren't doing that kind of self-work, you're talking about their identity. This is who the story that they've told about themselves, and this is me. So when you're trying to get me, when you're telling me a part of what I'm doing is wrong, what you're telling me, or the way it's being perceived, is you're telling me a part of me is wrong. And that's where the resistance comes in. And I always loved in Malcolm X, which is this how I knew when I look back at my life, I just know I was meant for this. My favorite two movies coming up were Lean on Me and Malcolm X. Lean on Me came out like 83. Like, what? Why is 6-year-old me so in love with Lean on Me? But I just was infatuated with Joe Clark. So, but in the movie Malcolm X, Elijah Muhammad, like, this is what we do. This is dirty water here. This is clean water. We just show them the clean water. So instead of us harboring on telling them what not to do, let's just show them an example of what to do. And make it look cool, make it look thorough. Sometimes it's not as glamorous. And I think sometimes we want the truth to just be accepted just because it's the truth. When sometimes you got to dress it up. Sometimes it got to look good. Sometimes it got to be attractive. But I think sometimes we spend too much time trying to tell people what not to do instead of what to do. Because even if you tell me what to stop, all right, now what's next? And a lot of people's language and whole speeches is about stop, 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 stop. Okay, if I listen to you, then what do I do? Just stand still? So instead of even telling me to stop, just expose me to something else to do. Pique my interest with something else to do. I've helped multiple people write books. So many young guys came to me like, yo, man, I got a story I want to tell, man. How can I? Once they saw me do it, it's different. Like, yo, yeah, I seen your video. You on this big stage and you speaking. Yo, that's crazy, man. You be getting paid to talk. Yo, man, I saw you. Like, sometimes like at Malcolm X Day, big joy. And I'm up on a stage And these is all street guys. And it's just like, yo, you doing something different, and it inspires them. And it's not me telling them stop hustling. Stop hustling. Because for one, you might not be able to stop hustling in the moment. That's how you feeding your family. But can we gradually get you off of that? I had created something called New Lanes, New Money. And I was talking to this young guy. I had a big crowd too. I was on my corner, 17th and Anna. And somebody, yo, man, look down there. What y'all see? Buildings. Because from 17th and Anna, you can see the Liberty Place, Comcast, all that right there. I'm like, I said, it's a multiple multi-millionaires in each of them buildings running them companies, man. Right down the street. I said, it's so many ways of making money. I mean, look at that HUD card. I start putting the stuff that's on the ground. Whoever started that was probably a billionaire. Look at that rapper. Whoever, and they was just like, expose them to something new. So we don't got to beat them to death with teaching them what's wrong and telling them what they need to stop. But I believe we definitely need to show them what their possibilities are, what they're capable of, and allow them to express themselves however that shows once we expand their minds.
You brought up a great point, right? So, spent time inside, you were outside, right? Transitioning now. There are two parts I want to talk about. If you're outside and say you want to stop hustling, right? That transition in regards to going from fast money to slow money. I think that's not a conversation a lot of brothers talk about, and how hard that transition is for most people.
That transition is really hard, in particular for me. So when I stopped, I had a bunch of money. So in my mind, it wasn't going to be that hard. But even though the Bible says, "Train up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they shall not depart." So even though I was heavy in the streets, I never identified as a drug dealer. Like, this is something I'm doing, but I was never Avon Barksdale. I was always more Stringer Bell. So I always had this. One of my aunts lives in South Carolina, and every time she came up, my whole life, as soon as she came in, she would send me to the store to get her a hoagie or a cheesesteak. Every time she came to Philly. So it's always in my mind, man, one day I'm going to move down south and open up a cheesesteak spot. So when I first stopped hustling, I started going to church, and I'm like, I got this money, man, I'm out. I moved to South Carolina, opened up a cheesesteak spot. 2006, that recession hit 2007 and destroyed me. And I lost everything. I mean, every single dollar. Had to come back, moving with my mom. Now, for me, I just feel like God was just holding me, because I never forget when I came back, man, talking to somebody. He's like, I got 3 bricks for you, man. To this day, man, I'm like, I don't know how I said no. I mean, I had no money, and I owe people money because I was borrowing money, like trying to get it, and my name was good. So like, all right, I'll float you a couple thousand, man. Go ahead. So I'm back with nothing, and I'm owing thousands of dollars, and this is gonna put me right back on my feet, man. Like, I got 3 bricks for you, and I was like, man, I'm done. And so it was a hard struggle, man. I was just so focused on being this new version of me that I'm like, I don't want to go back to that person. And that's something I struggle with so hard, because I cried. I did a lot of crying, man. For all the years that I was tough and wouldn't cry, I'd have made up for that. So a lot of nights, because I was so scared of myself. I mean, I was afraid of me.
Explain.
I knew who I was capable of being. But I had already became this new person. But once everything was gone, and I'm like, how long can I go through this before I revert back to that old me? But I didn't want to be him. And I was afraid that one day I wouldn't be able to fight it. Like I just felt like, man, it was gonna be a full moon, and I was just gonna turn into a werewolf, man. And that's how I felt. And it was it was a lot, man. I mean, it's crazy to be afraid of yourself. That's a crazy place to be,
I
man.
think a lot of men, depending on what they've been through, they are scared of themselves, especially when they change. You know.
Yeah, man. I did a rap album with one of my books, and I talk about that one of my songs. Man, I asked the question, man, do you know how it feels to be afraid of yourself? And a lot of the brothers, man, hearing it in the context of the songs, like, yo, like all the dudes that's out, like, cause some days I'll be like, man, I could just run in the bank, you know what I'm saying, anything, but yeah, man. So I was afraid, but I feel like you have to have a goal. You have to have a goal. You have to have an idea of what you want, and then just persevere. I mean, I don't have any no easy way to put it. I don't have any easy way to put it. It was not easy. It was very hard. It was very stressful. I spent times suicidal, like because I got to a place where I felt like, man, I don't think I could do this much longer, and I'd rather die than be that again. Like that old version of me, man, I never want to be that. I never want to go back to that. And so it was a struggle, man, for years, man, years and years, man. But I found solace in seeing what my change was doing for other people. I never forget one day I'm walking and I see this truck pull up. I think it's a friend of mine, but my friend a little heavy, so I'm looking at the silhouette through light tint, and I'm like, that ain't him. Who is this? The guy rolled the window down. It's one of my enemies from back in the day, one of my old enemies. We're not enemies no more. Guy we was going to war with. He rolled the window down, said, Poop, the streets need you, man. The streets need you, man. Everything that we've been through, man, not knowing no better, man, the streets need what you doing. And just pulled off. One day I'm on the corner, man, little young boy pull up, roll the window down, and said, yo, Pook, man, you a hero. That's what gave me solace. Now I knew now my struggle, it was hard. I didn't want to be living in the back room of my mom's house. But I took solace seeing that, yo, you're making the difference, man. And things are change eventually. You know, you might not be where you were, but that's okay. But you making a difference out here. And I knew I was doing what God wanted me to do. And that's all I needed to keep going forward. So it's no easy fix to it, but the negative, if you don't get out, it's going to overpower you. It's going to overpower you. You got to get out, or you're going to end up dead in jail, paralyzed. All you know what I mean. So, is that what you want? Is that what you want? You know, is the game actually leading you to where you really want to go? Because everybody has big dreams. Is the life that you leading you to those things is the question. And I don't, for most part, you know, most drug dealers ain't even really making no money. So you're just doing what you see everybody else doing. You really making McDonald's money.
Can you talk about a lot of brothers when it's time to be released, scared to be released, and rather stay inside? I don't think people understand that psychology.
If you're not somebody who's in jail getting beat up, jail is easy. It's no pressure. It's absolutely no pressure. Like if you are at least cool with people and you can go throughout your day and nobody's bothering you, you ain't got to pay. You ain't gonna worry about no bill. You ain't gonna worry about taking care of no. Like it's no pressure, and you ain't gonna worry about feeding yourself. Like nothing. Everything is there and provided for you. So when people are coming home, they know that all right. When I get home, it's a whole lot. I got to take care of me, and depending on how long you've been in there, you don't even remember, how to do it. You get so institutionalized. What's crazy is when I was younger, I used to hear people talk about being institutionalized, and I was like, come on, man, if I go to jail, I ain't going to, man. I remember the day I got released, man.
How long was your stretch?
I never got found guilty. I was charged with some heinous stuff, but I was down the county just fighting my case until I eventually beat it. And so I'm down to court, and so the witnesses stopped coming, to court. So I just had to keep coming. until they finally throw it out because the witnesses wouldn't be there. So I'm down, and they call my name, and I hear them say discharged. I'm like, I ain't talking about me. I'm like, yo, come on, man. I'm ready to go back to the jail, man. I'm ready to go back to the jail. He's like, nah, you discharged. I'm like, they cut the joint off my arm. Yo, you free to go. And the first, because normally they take you back to the jail and release you from the jail, but they let me go from court. And the first thing I thought was, damn, I at least wanted to go back to the jail. And then once I had that thought, I said, what the hell is wrong with you? Why you want to go back? Why would you want to go back to the jail, man? And I lived in South Philly, so I ran home from the CJC, man. I just ran home, man. But the pressure, man, just coming back to the streets and just being so used to this everyday routine in the jail, man, everything creates a loop that you are in. And until you intentionally move something out of that loop, it's like, so now how does this jail loop that I have in my mind of my identity, how does that fit in the world? I needed a whole new loop, and I don't even know how to create that. And that's why a lot of guys come home and go right back to doing what they were doing before. Well, I know how to get back into that loop, and so sometimes I guess it's just a fear of having to have all of these responsibilities back on your head again.
And it's also pretty hard if you don't have a support system.
Yes.
And depending what jurisdiction you're in, I'm not sure if it's in every state, but a lot of times you have to pay back a certain percentage for the time that you made. And it's like they give you a time frame to get employment and they give you a time frame to make the payment, but it's kind of not realistic when you come out, and you don't have a good support system or you're not a part of a program.
Yeah. And so that's a struggle. So the question is, like, day one, you get released. What do you do? Especially if you don't have a support system, where are you going? Some people can't even come home like early because they don't have no housing plan.
Facts.
So they got to do all of their time, and then once they do all of their time, they just come home to nothing, and they got to figure something out. And so that's a very stressful place to be if you don't have nowhere to go.
And nowhere to go, and a lot of brothers end up homeless.
Yeah. So that's the struggle. Like, what do I do? But not even just coming out of jail. I think that's a big struggle that a lot of black men face just in general. Like, what do I do? And that's what I'm saying. So many of us are just in survival mode. And in that survival mode, you just figuring out what I can do right now. How can I make a quick buck? Where can I sleep at the night? And nobody's really thinking about a week from now, 2 weeks from now, 5 years from now. It's just I'm trying to survive. I'm trying to survive this day and figure out every day how to survive the next day. And that's why we need so many people that can, reach back and show people something different, man, and take them to new places. I just took one of my friends, he tap dances, man. He just did a show, my man Khalil, his show called 1 pound 4 ounces, man. Very powerful, man, telling his story. But my friend that I took with me, super inspired him. Like, yo, man, he tap dancing, It's like, open his mind. He's like, man, I feel like I want to do a show, man. I want to tell my story, And so just like that, open up his mind, expose. All I do is take him somewhere and expose him to something new, and boom.
I know this is a concept you spoke about years ago, but I'd love if you could share it with the audience today. Can you share the 6 A's of manhood?
So accept your role as leader. Answer the cries of the community. Alleviate the stress from your women. Assume your purpose. Be available and never abdicate. So I want to go into one of these. This is kind of what we've been talking about. And that is answer the cries of the community. In the book, I was defining all of the negative behaviors that we see in the community as cries. Cries for help from men. Because the younger guys need the men to show up and be in their lives, and because they are looking for correction. I was the neighborhood uncle, and I beat all the kids. But the kids loved me more than anybody else. I was strict on all of the kids. When they got an A, guess who they wanted to run to? They wanted to run to me. So it's our duty. Listen, years ago in Africa, they wanted to get rid of all the big male elephants for some reason. And so they took all the big male elephants out and they left the I'm ready to say women, they're not women, the female elephants and the little young male elephants. Without the guidance of the big male elephants, the young male elephants start behaving totally different than elephants ever behave. They start attacking people. They start attacking the women. They start attacking each other. They start doing all of this violent stuff that was typically not in the elephant's nature. And they're trying to figure out, what do we do? How do we get these young elephants to stop acting like this? And somebody said, put the big male elephants back. They put the big male elephants back and the behavior was corrected. So that's just what jumped out when I looked at that. Answer the cries. I'm not looking at the negative thing that you're doing as you just bad, you just malicious. But then again, I have a different vantage point because it used to be me. Because I was a lost cause. People even was telling me, man, you need to focus on the youngest, the under 10. They quoting Frederick Douglass. It's easier to, what is it? It's easier to raise a child than to correct a grown man or something like that. And I'm like, I can never feel like that because I changed. You can't tell me somebody's lost, but I wasn't lost. So I don't see the behaviors as not that they aren't negative, but I see them as cries. And they're cries that I need to address. So that's just what jumped out to me from the 6 A's right now, because that was kind of pertaining to what we've been talking about so far.
As a man that's been outside, made the change, what message would you give to the young brothers? Because everyone I know that's been outside back in the day said outside is dead. They said it's over with. What message would you give to young brothers thinking they could survive outside?
What, thinking that they can survive outside? Well, my message wouldn't be to answer that question, because they'll survive. But is that what you really want? So my question to them would be, who could you be if you didn't have to survive the streets? That's my question. If you never went through what you went through, if you never watched a shooting when you was 10 years old, if you was never, had your lights out, if life was perfect for you up until this point, who would you be? What identity would you have then? Because that's what Killing Yesterday is about, shedding all of that. And now I want to get to the core version of me that was untouched by my pain, because my pain made me develop a certain attitude. My trauma made me develop a certain response to things. The expectations developed a certain version of me. But if I get away from all of those versions of me and I'm standing at a field of possibilities of who I could be, what would you choose? So that's what I would say to them. No, they're going to survive somehow. Everybody dies. So if they die, it's not like they didn't survive. We all going to die one day. But how did you live? So who would you be if it wasn't for your trauma? If we removed that and you just had a free possibility to be anything possible. I'm not even going to say anything that's available, because you could be something that nobody even knows. Because the truth is only about the past. Every day the truth is being changed when somebody discovers something else. There was a truth that humans couldn't fly until the Wright brothers made a plane. So who would you be if you had a field of possibilities, endless possibilities of being? Who would you be? And start dedicating yourself to being that. That's what my message would be. It's so much more in you than who you've been. It's so much more in you than who you've been. That doesn't define you. It doesn't define you. Who you became is not who you are. It's a version of you inside of you that's free. It's a version of you that doesn't feel fear. It's a version of you that doesn't feel worry. It's a version of you that never felt rejection. It's a version of you that never felt failure. It's this perfect version of you inside of you that's buried upon all these layers of the identities that have been put on you throughout the years. It's a version. It's called your I am. It's a version in there that if you get to and live from, You can be anything that you imagine to be. So why stop at just being what you see every day? Let's get bigger. Let's be bigger. Let's go to bigger places. Let's be on bigger stages of life. Let's see more of the world. Because it's more in you. And I know it because I'm a living example.
In black media, right, there's a lot of praise for certain behaviors that's detrimental to us collectively as a people, right? Many figures praise what they call unaliving people,
That's
right?
what they say on TikTok.
But there's a reality of it that people don't want to talk about. Not only the victim, but the person that does the action. Based on your experience working with a lot of brothers, can you speak about some of the things that really impact people who really partake in certain things?
Yeah, that's a big thing, for me is people not being honest, especially people who are going through it. They're just, capitalizing off of glorifying this thing. When I know if y'all have actually been through some of this stuff, like I've definitely seen, somebody that did a shooting and then found out the person died, and when they found out the person died, they throwing up all over the place, you know, or that's why a lot of young guys are getting high. It's,
Heavily medicated.
yeah, that medicating because they can't take what they've done sober. So it's like you glorifying being on this side of the gun and not being the one that's being shot. But it's trauma being the shooter as well. I think about something often, man. There was a young guy, being in South Philly, man, is so crazy because at one point everybody is like friends, and then you start getting older, people start moving around, and then you end up at war, with your friends. So it was a young guy that was from our block, and he started being on the other side, and he ended up getting killed. But his mom, like, lived around the corner. I ate dinner at his house. Love his mom. Love his little sister. And his mom would just come to the block and just scream. And it just hurt so much to see her pay, a woman I dearly love, because she's from the neighborhood. And she would just come to the block and just shriek, "Y'all killed my son, y'all killed my son." Just, I can't get those shrieks out of my mind. Can't get those shrieks out of my mind. First of all, he was somebody I loved too, that ended up dying in a senseless street war. And more in his death, but more so the pain that his mom was going through because of the war that we all were in. And nobody talks about this kind of stuff. People just make it like you could be in a street war and it's just all fun. And no, it's nothing fun. It's nothing fun about getting shot. It's nothing fun about shooting at somebody and then running and hoping the cops don't get. It's no fun in none of that. And people know that. These shooters, these rappers that are actually out here getting active, they know that. They know that's why they on pills. They know that's why they sipping syrup, because they can't take what they did, but they glorifying it to make somebody else have to go through that same thing. And there's trauma on the side of holding the gun. And if any young guy that's seeing this and you watching these guys talk about drilling and you want to drill to them, it's not the party that you think it is. It might be amazing for you while you pulling that trigger because you don't think it's really real. But once it settles in, it's not going to be something that you like.
Listen to you talk. I had a reasoning with a breakdown, right? We're talking about slow suicide the different ways, right? And this came up in the conversation. So someone who's on that side of the gun, right? One can argue to a certain instance now that the turmoil that they experience leads them to put themselves in a position to be murdered.
Definitely.
Subconsciously.
So I think a lot of the murders are actually suicides.
I've been saying this. People don't want to listen to me.
So
I'm serious.
yeah, so if
Continue.
you look at, I did a rap video, like I said, from one of my books, and I have a scene where I'm killing like I'm shooting, but it's me on this side, me in the middle, and me on the other side, and that's what I'm talking about. When I kill these niggas, I'm killing myself, because I don't care about myself enough. I don't love myself enough, because if I see some of the stuff these young guys are doing, and I'm just like, yo, you didn't even want to get away with that crime at all.
Facts.
You just shot them in front of 300 people. You're going to jail. But if I don't care about me, I'm not worried about if I go to jail or if I die because I don't care about me. So what I'm doing is just a reflection of how I feel about myself. So when I kill you, I'm really killing me because I don't care about my life. Because once you start to be like, start to living, you ain't gonna want to just throw your life away. You're like, man, I'm trying to go back to St. Bart's. So I don't mean to laugh, talking about this, but that's a real thing. Like, man, you got to experience more, and we got to put some more self love in them. Show them that they have value. That's one thing. The people who are not in it need to start showing them that they have some kind of value. I promise you this. Me and my brother, Pastor Carl Day, and another group of guys, we used to do something. It was called Men on the Move. Every Tuesday or Thursday, one of the T's, we used to go out into the streets and just walk up on random corners and just start talking to young guys. Never one time, not one time, did we ever walk up on a corner and them young guys be like, "Come on, we ain't trying to hear that." Every time they listened to us, man. No matter where we went, and we used to pull up like if it was a murder, like we would like the next day after the murder, we'll pull up to the scene and just start talking to people and listening to these young guys. A lot of them don't want to be that. They don't want to be that. My first book I wrote is called "Come Out of Your Tomb." I was reading the story in the Bible of the demoniac in the tombs, which everybody calls him, but obviously he had a name, but the people call him by his issue. But the story is that every night he's in the tombs crying and cutting himself. And this is when I was going through my struggle early on, when I first got out of the streets. And this is when I was struggling so much with being afraid of going back to being who I used to be. And when I read that, I was like, yo, I identify with that. Every night I'm crying because he didn't want to be the demoniac. That's what he became, but that's not who he wanted to be. And I'm like, yo, I don't really want to be this person. And then I don't know if I ever wanted to be this person. It's who I became. My father died. And when my father died, so I'm a junior. My name hurt. Every time my name was called, it hurt. It was a reminder that I was a fatherless child. So I was trying to escape that identity any kind of way because that identity comes with all of this pain. I need a new identity. And the street said, here's your jersey. And I put on this new identity. Never who I was supposed to be. I used to be a violinist. I used to play a game called Crypto, a math game. I used to travel around on a crypto team. But once I got that new jersey, I became a whole new person. But who would I be if my dad never died? I think I'll be who I am today because I got back to that. But if I didn't, if I stayed in the street and I stayed that person, I stayed that identity, I might not even be here.
Do you think when you were outside, man, is the praise and validation you weren't getting from a male that kept you, that really fulfilled you, that led you,
Well,
along with the money, obviously?
I think it's a whole lot. So I started hustling because I just was poor. So I remember going into ninth grade. My mom didn't have money at the moment to buy me new sneakers to go to high school. And the sneakers I had was dogged. And she like, I have money in 2 weeks to get you some sneakers. So I'm like, because I was raised right. I wasn't never wanted to be in any of those street stuff. And I'm just like, man, I can't go the first day of high school with these on. Everybody looked good the first day. And I made the worst decision of my life. And I went and got a pack. I said, I'm going to just do this one time. I'm going to do this one time. I'm going to flip this one pack. I'm going to buy me some sneakers. And then I'm never going to sell drugs again. And I got the pack. And I sold the drugs in like an hour. And I said, if I keep doing this, what else could I buy? One pack, I was addicted. I bought me some black chuckers, and I asked for another pack.
And I'm glad you said that because they always talk about the drug user that's addicted, but they never talk about the drug dealer
Oh, I
that's
wrote a whole
addicted.
blog on drug dealing addiction. Yeah, I was addicted. I was totally addicted after one pack. The money came so fast. I only had like $70 or something like that to myself after I flipped the pack, but it was enough to buy the boots. And it was only an hour, like an hour and a half or something. I came on the block and just, oh shoot. And then that was it. Then I was like, yo, man, I be seeing people wearing Versace. You know, if I do this, and I was always good at math, really, if I'm making $70, $80 an hour, I could go, and that's exactly what I did. It was a store on South Street called Scenario. It was across from Dr. Denham's. I was in there, every iceberg, Moschino, give me all them $125 t-shirts. Oh man, but yeah, I got addicted, man, that one pack. And then, I was young. I was like 13, and then I bought a car. So I'm driving to high school, and then I bought a chain. And that was it. So now people are looking at me different. The girls that wasn't looking at me before looking at me now. And so it's the money, it's the validation, it's the people that want to be around you. Once you're doing good, everybody want to be around you. And then it's the older guys that I was hanging with, and it was just a whole amalgamation of things that make you feel good, that get that dopamine released in your body.
When the violence came into play, was that a deterrent or is it something you just accepted?
And I think about that all the time. It wasn't a deterrent because I feel like, to me, because I'm a spiritual guy, I feel like the streets is like a spiritual thing, man. It's like
Explain.
I feel like when you get in it, it's like a spirit that's on you, helping you to be in the street. Because this stuff is so crazy, you should lose your mind seeing some of the stuff that you see, and or you should be deterred by something. It doesn't make sense that something can happen and you're just not deterred at all. So my thing, I feel like it'd be a spirit on you that you got to get off of you. So when the violence came into play, it was like, for one, what else was I going to do? Where was I going to go? I didn't have nowhere to go. So it was just be violent back. So it wasn't a deterrent because y'all already trying to kill me. If I don't want to be killed, I can't tell y'all stop. That's just not how it works. So you just got to shoot back. So no, I wasn't deterred. It became a normal part of life to get shot at. Became a normal part of life to shoot, and became a normal part of life to carry a gun every day. Like it's just second nature. You just got your gun on you at all times, and you're always on the lookout for something. You're paying attention to everything. You pay attention to every car. You pay attention to cars that got dents and license plate numbers, and you know everything to try to keep yourself safe. It's a very exhausting life. It's a very exhausting life. And it's something I'm still working through 20 years later, 20 something years later, because that stuff just be built in your nervous system, and you got to get it all out. And it takes some time. I'm still super cautious. Not to where I used to be. Like, cause I got shot sitting in my car, and for years I never let cars pull up next to me. If I'm on like a two-way street, like Washington Avenue or something like that, I pull up to the light, I pull up in the middle. For years, like nobody's pulling. You're not a car. I was so terrified of being killed in my car again, well, being killed in my car, that I wouldn't let no car pull up on me. So it's like years before I could be like, all right. And even after the wars was over and done, I still didn't like no cars pulling up next to me. And that's what I'm saying. Like, these survival behaviors that we got to recognize and get rid of, because I don't need that. But how many other survival mechanisms do I have, or do you have?
Fam, we appreciate you sharing the information and let people know where they can find you online.
Yeah, they can find me at CoachNkrumah.com, CoachNkrumah. So CoachNkrumah.com or KillingYesterday.com for the book. So either or, you'll find me.
All right,
And on social media, same thing. Coach Nkrumah, TikTok, Coach Nkrumah, Instagram and BF Nkrumah on Facebook.
I respect.